Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host. This is going to be a quick one. We're going to take a look at a trick I pulled here using CV so that you can add it to your tracks. We're looking at this sound here. It's kind of brassy bass thing. So it's coming out of the DCO 106, which is a emulation of the Juno 106. Super cheap. It's $25, Cherry Audio. Pretty awesome. If you listen to the sound though, there's some movement, and the movement is this scream. Distortion is what's really making this sound sing. So if I bypass this, I'll match the gain because it's really quiet. But if you take a look, not doing much. It is a pulse wave, a saw wave with a sub oscillator, but the low pass is the cutoff is very low. So down there, I'm rolling off most of the harmonics and you're kind of getting like a dirty sine type thing. So that's the bass sound, a little bit of chorus. So the real magic comes when I add distortion. So it's got movement to it if you can hear that, and I'll show you how I achieve that. Because if you look, the damage control is quite low, but it's actually sweeping up. So instead of opening the filter, if you think about it, instead of opening the filter, I'm destroying it in time with the music. And I'm doing that by using this global envelope in the Thor, and I'm routing that to control the damage control. If I flip this over, you can see Thor's not rooted to anything except for this CV output. I use the global envelope just because it's an advanced envelope. It has a delay parameter and a hold parameter, as well as the typical ADSR. I'm not using either of those, but that's handy. I also have the gate trigger on, which means since this is in the same combinator as the DCO 106, every time I hit a note, it knows that I hit a note and will run that envelope shape. So I use the global envelope also because it's normaled already to this output here. Although I could send any of the four envelopes, filter, amp, mod, or global, to any of these CV outputs if I wanted to, using the mod matrix there. You'll see that in a second. So yeah, here, if I can show you, if I play the sound and change the timing of the envelope, you'll hear the sweep. And also, I'll show you this. The damage control is going from where it is up to here. You can control that here. So if I play the sound and move this down, we get less damage. Or if I move it up, we get crazy damage. Move that back. There we go. So if I also change the timing of the envelope, you can hear, I'll get rid of the attack phase. Now it's just a pluck. So yeah, the object here, and this is a quick movement, but the object here is to make a movement on the distortion, similar to the movement you would put on a filter. So it dances with the music. And that's kind of the power of the rack as well. With CV, once you get into CV routing, you can have envelopes on envelopes. I mean, I could make as many Thors as I want, or even a Europa, which has a more complex envelope. You can draw and modulate anything I want with anything I want, right? So that modularity leads to tons of sound design possibilities. Let me show you kind of how I set this up. I'll add a reverb to the mix using the same shape so that you can A, hear it a little bit better, and B, kind of get some ideas on what you might do. I'm going to add a VST reverb to start with because it's actually easier to set up than one of the inbuilt ones. Also, you get another tip. If you didn't know, if you open the CV programmer and hit learn, it'll open the plugin. And then you see I wiggle a knob, and now CV1 will control this knob. I'm going to make it fully dry. I'm going to move the decay down just a little bit. I'm going to make it fully dry. And then I have two options here. I can split the global envelope and have it go to two places using a CV splitter. Or what I'm going to do, so that you can also get a look at this, is just take the envelope, the global envelope, and send it to, where are you? CV output 1. So now it's going to where it's normaled, and it's also coming out of CV1. So then I'll route CV1 to modulate the CV1 input, and therefore the mix knob. You can also, since I'm on a VST, see this happen in real time. So let's... So it starts really dry, and then as the envelope runs, it gets really wet. So that's really cool. You can see the possibilities there. Now you can do this with inbuilt effects too. It just depends on what CV jacks are on the back. And this reverb here, the RV7000, doesn't have a CV end to control the dry wet. So that makes it a little more complicated. Let's just delete that. But I want to show you that in case there isn't a CV input for what you want to modulate, you still have options. So let's take the output coming out of the screen and let's split it. We're going to run a parallel instance of the reverb instead of running it in series. So we're going to need a reverb, and we're going to need, since I was already there, we're going to need a spider so we can split the signal. So the DCO 106 and the scream, that's the sound, and they're running in series. That's kind of how I think about it as well, but that's the sound, and we want to take that sound and add the same motion onto a reverb that's going to run in parallel. So that's the thought process here. So we can move these outputs to the spider and run the output of the scream to the input of the spider. So now we have just this passing through and onto the combinator. And now the combinator 2 has a little kind of simple mixer here. If you are not on the combinator 2, you can run a line mixer to do the same thing. And then you would just run the output of the line mixer to the from devices to the combinator 1. But I'm on the combinator 2, so here we go. So I'm going to take one of the outputs from this spider, and it's going to go through a gain first. I'll just use the kilohertz gain since everybody can get it. Get that kilohertz bundle. It is mega handy. And I'm going to make another copy. We're going to have an input stage and an output stage so we can have more options controlling the level. We'll call it reverb in, and then we'll call this reverb out. Cool. Split into the reverb in. Looks like those automatically, I don't know, we don't need that to do that. Let's just get rid of those. They automatically routed because I didn't hold shift, but that's all right. Going through the reverb, through the out, and back up to the combinator or your line mixer. So if I just hit play and fade this in, you hear the reverb. Now let's get it moving in time. So all the way down with the reverb in this case, that's what I want. I want it to start dry and then wow with the reverb. And then I will take that CV connection that we already routed earlier and route it to the gain on the kilohertz. I'll bring the amount down a bit so it's not going all the way to positive 30 dB, I think it goes up to. I'm not even sure. What is it? Yeah, so we don't want that. So now when I press play, we're going to hear it modulate the same way we heard it modulate with the ROM. It's obviously a lot, so I'm going to bring that amount down, and then I can control the actual output. That's why we put an output stage, so we can fade it to where we want it. That's none. You get the idea. this could be anything. Again, you have the 4 envelopes that are in Thor. You have envelopes that are in Europa that are even more complex. You can route anything to anything. If the parameter that you're looking for doesn't have a CV input, you can do it like I just did it here and kind of think of it in more of a parallel kind of way where you're adding that flavor in time. You have tons and tons of options. So, you know, that's kind of what makes Reason king in terms of sound design, is the modularity of it. So start thinking about ways you can use CV to get things moving in time with each other, or out of time with each other, or have them do something like that. You can use the global envelopes delay feature to like have something do something later in the release stage of some sound that you're making. Just really start thinking. I wanted to get you thinking about CV and kind of get you unafraid of it. It's not that crazy. If you want to learn more about routing, want to learn more about synthesis, check out one of these 2 videos here. See you there.